Okay, so as I was saying, most of the times after a project, the externalities are widespread. And so there's another issue again. We should continue measuring externality up to what point? Okay, assuming the project is going to last for 20 years, are we going to measure the externalities up to 20 years? Okay, so I mean, with regard to this, a judgment call has to be made. So that one, it depends on the decision maker, the one doing the CBA. You will have to decide up to what point should I stop the measuring externality. So that one is for the person who is doing the CBA. But then the question is CBA the final decider for public projects? Not really, not really. There are times where, because we are talking about societal welfare, at times it's not just about this monetary benefits and then costs. When we are talking about public projects, we have to think about equity. We have to think about justice, societal prestige, harmony, and all those things. Things like this, they can never be quantified. How do you quantify unity? I mean, how do you quantify justice and all this? But at times, the project is not just about physical benefit and cost. Now we have to be thinking about societal equity. So it's possible that we will use CBA, and then the CBA will predict that the cost, the benefits are more than the cost, so we should go on. But then we realize that maybe after social consideration, the thing is not giving equity. There's no justice in the project, so we can just overrule the prediction that CBA gave. So CBA isn't actually the final decider. We have to consider other political and social stuff. So it depends. It depends on projects. So these are the steps in CBA. These are just the general steps, but not all CBA analysis undergo all these steps. It depends on the kind of projects that we are talking about. For example, if you take this one, if you take this step, discounting, okay, assuming the project is lasting for just a year, just 2 months, just 5 months, you don't need to discount anything. We are in the same year, but then if the project is going to last for a very long time, that is when we have to bring the future impacts into the current or the present time, so that we can do the comparison. So it depends. It depends on the kind of project that you want to. But these are the standard steps that you have to go to. So we have to take the steps one by one. Okay, the first step is that one, you really need to know what exactly are we doing? What project are we talking about here? Who are we doing the project for? Who is going to incur the cost? Who is going to incur the benefits? What is the type of project? Is it private? Is it public or quasi public? You have to be very concrete on these things. Just know all these benefits that you have come to. Where are they coming from? Who is actually going to get them? So this is the first step. You have proposed a project. You have to know this. If you're a CBA analyst, make sure that all these things are there. You stated them. You know that the costs are coming from here. The benefits are going here. And then these are the people involved. This is the type of project. So this is the first step that you have to go through. Then you have to identify the alternative projects. Okay, the alternative projects. At times you have like 5 projects that are being considered. So you have to state all those alternatives. Even if it's just one project, you have to compare it to doing nothing, the status quo, doing nothing at all. We want to embark on free SETs. We will compare the cost and then the benefit that we get from that project from not embarking on any free SETs at all. So that is the status quo. The status quo is we are not doing anything. We are not doing any project at all. What are the costs of not doing any project? What are the benefits of not doing any project at all? Then you compare it to the cost and then the benefit of doing that project. Okay, so you really need to know the alternatives. At times, considering the alternatives to maybe you have just one project, but then you can be thinking about the size of the project. Is it going to be nationwide? So first, just assuming the proposed one was nationwide, but then you have to be thinking about just doing it for a particular portion of the nation. So you have to compare this. It can also be about the duration of the project. The proposed one is 10 years, but you have to compare it to alternatives like maybe 20 years or 5 years. So you do that and then you know the best one that you have to go for. Now, let's look at this example. Assuming we were doing some immunization project, and then we did a CBA for the entire nation, and then we realized that no, the costs were more than the benefits. We shouldn't do it at all. But then you can try to do a CBA for just a particular community where maybe the disease is. And it's possible that when you do it for just that particular community, the benefits there will be more than the cost. So you realize that comparing the entire nation to just a particular community, we are going for just doing it for that particular community. So it's always important to know the alternatives, whether it's we have alternative projects or even with the same project you are talking about, the duration, the coverage, then all those things you have to consider. So that's the second step. Then you set your assumptions. You know economics is about all other things. Okay, so you have to set your assumptions before we can actually analyze the benefits and then the cost. Okay, some of the assumptions are the quantities of goods. Maybe you want to produce something. That's the project you want to do. You can never know the exact quantity that you produce until you produce it, but then we can just put that assumption and make a prediction about the quantity that you want to produce. Something like cost. You can't know all the costs that you carry. So that one too, we have to hold. And then about the market condition, most of the times we assume perfect competition because if the market is not competitive, most of the times there's a wedge between the value of the good and then the market price of the good. If you have a monopoly market, most of the times you pay more than the value of the good. Okay, but then if you assume perfect competition, then we know that the value is exactly equal to price. So that one you need to hold assumptions. Duration to we have to hold assumption. That if you do it for this number of years, this will do this, or what this you can never know. You just have to hold assumptions. Then even the discount rate that we have to use. If the project is a long-term one, all those ones we need to set out. So whenever you are doing it, we are talking about human beings. You cannot fully predict the nature of human beings. There are some assumptions that we have. So that's the first step. Set your assumptions. And then the next step is to list all the impacts, all the benefits and the costs. Make sure you state everything. Okay. Now the thing is that if it's just one project, you are comparing it to doing nothing at all. Okay. You are comparing it to doing nothing. So you have to make sure that all the benefits that you think you will be getting from the project, all the costs that you get, you have to make sure you've listed everything. Okay, list everything. And then you make sure they are all quantified. You know some of them can never be quantified. But if they can, You make sure you quantify them. The ones that cannot be quantified, at least you have to list them. List them in the analysis. Okay, you have to do. If you look at the example here, there's a project that is promoting national harmony. How do we quantify it? You can't, but then you have to state it. State it in the analysis. Let us know that this is also a benefit that you're getting from whatever project you want to do. So if the nation is concerned about having a national harmony, then yes, that is a good benefit that you have to consider. So the fourth step is to make sure that you've listed all the impacts. If you are talking about five projects, list the cost and benefits for all these projects because you'll be doing comparison. So you don't have to be biased. If you leave some out, you might make a prediction that might not actually be true. So you have to list all the impacts. Then after listing the impacts, you assign values, monetary values. You see, we are coming to compare cost and benefit. So we need a standard measure, and it's money that we use to do measurements in terms of cost and benefit. So you make sure that you are quantifying all the impacts, all the cost and benefit at the market price. Okay, what is the market and what's the prevailing price for all these costs and all these benefits now? But there are times where you might not actually be able to put values. Even there are times where there are some impacts that you wouldn't actually know the price of those, whether being cost or benefit. There's something called shadow pricing. Okay, we deal with all those things. If you have an impact that you are unable to put a monetary value on, then we'll just assume that if we were to be in a perfectly competitive market, what would have been the price of that good? You see the assumptions I was talking about. We have to just make some assumptions. So if we assume that we're in a perfectly competitive market, then what would have been the price of such an impact? So we do shadow pricing. We'll look at how to quantify all those non-monetary impacts. So we have to do that. Now, what we have to know is that for CBA, we are just generating the cost and then the benefits. They don't actually use it to make decisions. After the analysis, you present it. This is the cost, this is the benefit. But then the final decision making is in the hands of whoever the project is for. Whoever the project is for, because it's very hard to actually get all the benefits and all the costs. So if you have to only do it with CBA without considering the analysis, so as far as possible, you make sure that you assign values impacts. Then now we deal with the unquantified ones, the ones that you can't even use pricing. At least you have to state them. Okay, you can't put values on them. You cannot use shadow pricing, but you still have to state those impacts so that we know. It's possible that we cannot quantify them, but we can know. We can compare two projects. Let's assume that we have two projects. We've seen that one will foster national harmony, one will not. These are things that we cannot quantify, but then just by listing them, we are able to know that this project can bring harmony. So if we are concerned about that, then we have to go for it. So that's what you have to do. Then we get to discounting. Most of the times for benefits of the project, we normally do them in the future. Okay, if we are something like this, free as it testing, though people are looking some benefits now. The actual benefit is when these students will finish their education and start working. When they become productive, that is when we are actually getting benefit. But now we are, I mean, parents are getting benefit and all that. But the actual benefit that we get from that project is going to be after they are done in school. So how do we know what our benefit that we get? But we need them now. So we have to bring those future stream of impact to the present so that we can actually compare them. Okay? Up until the time that the person will start, the government is still spending. So we have costs, but that will also be paid in the future. So we have to discount bring all these numbers to the that is what we use discounting. So the difficulty here too is the choice of interest rate. What rate are we able to do discounting? But then those who do CB, they have standard rates that that's standard. We just take the rate and then try to bring it to the present so that we can do comparison. Then you have to identify and account for uncertainty. The future is so unknown. You don't know what is going to happen in the future. So whenever you are doing a project, you have to factor in this. Let me give you an example. My church, we are building a church and we wanted to buy these buildings. I think like 2 months ago, before I harvest, the guy did the estimate, and I think it was 7,200 or something. So when we gave him the money, I think last week, he went there and he called that we have to add like 400 CDs again. You see what the guy did? He didn't take into account uncertainty. I mean, prices can change. When you go to the construction industry, when they are charging, they add uncertainty, but prices can just go up at any time. And as soon as you sign a contract, most of the time they don't change the values again. So if you are aware of uncertainty, then you have to incorporate this risk in the deal even before the thing is signed. So if you were going to charge 10,000, you have to, I mean, give some allowance, maybe charge like 12,000, just in case you go and then prices have skyrocketed. I mean, you can still manage it. Okay? So when you are doing CBA, you don't have to forget about uncertainty. You go there and then the prices are no longer the way you thought. So you have to, I mean, add uncertainty. So prices are one. We can even talk about population dynamics. Maybe when we were actually doing this CBA, we are thinking about 2,000 people. Now there's population growth. We are now 4,000. So is the project going to be useless now? So from the onset, as soon as you started, you need to make sure that you are accounting for uncertainty. Okay. We can even talk about weather conditions for projects that are affected by the weather. You know that it can rain. You can also have sunshine. So you have to incorporate all these things. So most of the times they do something called sanctity analysis, where you do the thing and the different conditions and the different outcomes. So for example, we want to do a project that will last for 20 years. Let's do CBA for 20 years, for 15 years, for 5 years, and let's compare them. Maybe we want to do a project for the entire nation. Let's do some for the entire nation. Let's do some for only villages. Let's compare it. Let's be changing the size of the project just in case. I mean, there are changes in status. Something even like the discount rate. Maybe we are using 15%. Let's also use 10%. Let's also use 20%. Let's compare all this just in case later on, by the time we get the discount rate, I mean, we don't have issue at all. So it's very important to do sensitivity analysis so that you can, add all these certainties. So that is one. The other step that you also have to. So after getting all the benefits and costs, then we have to compare them. Okay? But then before we compare them, you have to find the present value of all the impacts, the cost, and then the benefit. You have to discount them, bring them to the present time. Then after that, we use the investment criteria. The investment criteria. The widely used one is the NPV, net present value. So which is the difference between the present value of the benefit and then the present value of the cost. So if you find the net and it's positive, then yes, we can actually work on the points. But we have other investment criteria that we can use, the internal rate of return, payback period. All details on there's a full topic on investment criteria. So get there and look at what and how we use all this. So this is what we actually use to predict whether we have to continue and we have to embark on the project. And then when you are done with everything. You have to do a post-project analysis. At least it will give you an insight into the analysis that's and by doing that one to at least you get some knowledge, some information that will help you with us. So these are the steps